You take a sip of cold water, and a sharp pain shoots through one tooth. It's fast, it's specific, and it wasn't there a week ago. So you do what almost everyone does. You blame the cold. But the cold isn't the reason this is happening. And in the next few minutes, you're going to understand something about that tooth that most people never figure out until the damage is already done. Because here's the strange part. The cold didn't hurt your tooth. It's not even capable of it. What you felt wasn't damage. It was a signal, a warning that something inside that tooth had already changed. Quietly, slowly, for months, maybe years. The cold was just the first thing to find the gap in the armor. To see what actually happened, you have to look beneath the surface, because a tooth isn't the solid little stone you picture. Under the hard enamel is a living layer called dentin, and that dentin is not solid at all. It's threaded with thousands of microscopic tunnels. Each one runs from the surface of the tooth down toward the nerve at its core. And inside every one of those tunnels sits a tiny thread of fluid. Now hold that image, because this is the part that changes everything. More than 50 years ago, a researcher named Brenstrom worked out exactly what happens in a sensitive tooth. It wasn't the cold touching the nerve. It was the cold moving that fluid. A sudden shift inside the tunnel, and that movement pulls on the nerve ending, and the nerve fires off one sharp electric jolt of pain. They called it the hydrodynamic theory. And more than half a century later, it's still the accepted explanation. So, read what that actually means. The cold never reached the nerve. It only moved the fluid, which tells you the pain was never really about the cold at all. It was about the fact that those tunnels were open. And that's the real question. The one nobody stops to ask, because those tunnels don't just open on their own. Something had to strip away the protection first. So the moment you feel that jolt, the honest question isn't, why does cold hurt? It's, what uncovered the tunnel? And this is where almost everyone gets it wrong. The first thing people assume is a cavity. It feels logical. Sharp pain, one tooth, must be decay. But most of the time, it isn't. Decades of research point to sensitivity being something else entirely. A slow wear phenomenon that begins long before decay ever enters the picture. So they stop looking for a cavity, and they land on the next assumption. It must be their brushing. They're not doing enough, and here's where it gets almost unfair. Because you can brush perfectly, floss every night, never miss a cleaning, and this still happens. Why? Because brushing does exactly one job. It removes plaque, that's it. It was never built to stop the other forces working on your teeth every single day. Perfect brushing doesn't neutralize the acid in citrus, in wine, in sparkling water, even the drinks you were told were healthy. It doesn't refill a mouth that's gone dry. It doesn't stop your jaw from grinding at 3 a.m. And here's the twist inside the twist. Brushing too hard doesn't just fail to help, it actively makes it worse. Scrubbing wears the surface down and helps the gum line quietly retreat, uncovering the very tunnels you're trying to protect. In fact, when researchers examined thousands of adults across 7 countries in a 2024 study, most of them showed gum recession, the single most common way these tunnels get exposed in the first place. So, if it's not the cold, not a cavity, and not your brushing, what is it? The answer is that it's almost never one thing. It's a slow collision of small ones. A little erosion from acid, a little wear from grinding, a gum line creeping back a fraction of a millimeter at a time, a mouth that produces a little less saliva than it used to. Let me show you how ordinary just one of these looks. You wake up. You have your coffee, maybe a glass of lemon water first, because someone told you it was healthy. Both are acidic, and for several minutes after, the surface of your enamel is softened. Not damaged, just vulnerable. And what do most people do next? They walk straight to the sink and brush. Hard. Here's the part almost no one knows. Brushing in that window doesn't clean the softened enamel. It scrubs it away. Acid and brushing don't take turns. They work together. One softens the surface, the other strips it off. Researchers even have a name for it. Erosion and abrasion, acting in synergy. Do that every morning for a few years, and you're not brushing your teeth anymore. You're slowly sanding them. And that's just the morning. Now think about the 8 hours you don't remember at all, because for a lot of people, the worst of it happens at night, and they sleep straight through it. Clenching, grinding, Jaw muscles that can push harder while you're asleep than you could ever manage on purpose. Awake. You don't feel a thing. You wake up, and the day begins. But over months, that pressure flexes the tooth, wears down the biting edge, and can even open tiny stress fractures right at the gum line, exactly where the tunnels sit. And here's what ties it together. One of the biggest triggers for that nighttime grinding is stress. The exact kind that builds quietly in your 40s and 50s, when sleep turns lighter and the mind won't switch off. So while you're lying there, certain you're doing everything right, your own jaw is slowly uncovering the nerve. One clench at a time, morning and night. Acid and pressure. Each one invisible. None of them hurts. And together, one quiet day, they leave a tunnel open, and the next cold sip finds it. But there's one more piece. And for a lot of people watching this, especially women past 40, this is the piece that explains everything. Because there's a reason sensitivity can suddenly appear in midlife, even when nothing in your routine changed. And here's what almost no one tells you. It has nothing to do with your teeth simply getting older. In fact, and this is the part that surprises people, with age alone, teeth usually get less sensitive, not more. The dentin slowly thickens and seals its own tunnels over the years. So when sensitivity shows up later in life, that's not aging. That's something overriding the protection aging would normally give you. And two of the biggest culprits we've already named, receding gums and a drying mouth, are both tied to one thing quietly shifting in the background: estrogen. As estrogen falls, salivary flow can drop. And that's not a coincidence. The salivary glands themselves carry estrogen receptors. Now, why does a little less saliva matter so much? Because saliva is the mouth's buffer. It neutralizes acid. It rinses the surface. It helps re-harden enamel every single day. Take some of that away, and the acids that open those tunnels get to work longer and reach further. So for many women, sudden sensitivity in midlife isn't random. And it isn't just getting older. It's a hormonal shift pulling away 2 layers of protection at the same time. And the cold is simply the first thing to expose it. Which brings us to the mistake. The one nearly everyone makes next. They switch to a desensitizing toothpaste and they stop there. And to be fair, it helps. These work by calming the nerve or by plugging the openings of the tunnels so the signal goes quiet. But quieting the alarm is not the same as putting out the fire. If the gum keeps receding, if the acid keeps softening the enamel, if the grinding keeps going, the exposure keeps spreading underneath the relief. You've muted the messenger and left the message unread. So here's what actually helps. Not to erase the symptom, to stop the cause. Find the acid, not just soda, citrus, wine, sparkling water, even juice. Rinse with water after and don't brush right away. Ease off the brush. Soft bristles, gentle pressure. Harder is not cleaner. Protect your saliva. Stay hydrated and treat a chronically dry mouth as a real signal, not a small annoyance. Deal with grinding. If you clench at night, a guard can stop the wear you never feel happening. And when the pain lingers or spreads, get it looked at properly to rule out what a toothpaste never could. Because here's the truth you started this video without. One day, sensitivity seems to appear out of nowhere. But the tooth had been telling the story for a long time, quietly under the surface.